Hi, I'm excited to discuss code system development to make science computable. I would like to thank and acknowledge Joanne Dehnbostel, Vignesh Subbian, Muhammad Afzal, Bhagwan Kamadi, and nearly 100 others participating in the COVID Knowledge Accelerator. In healthcare, there is an immense continuous cycle generating data from the observations, analyzing the data to create evidence, interpreting this evidence to develop guidance, making decisions based on the evidence and guidance, and generating data from these actions. Many are working to increase efficiency at the core of these efforts by developing standards for computable data exchange. We are going to focus on the evidence portion of this and the standards to communicate evidence, the statistics, the variables that the statistics are about, and the certainty of these findings. Health Level 7 International, or HL7, is a standards development organization that does immense work for global health data interoperability. Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources, pronounced FHIR, is an HL7 standard that is becoming widely adopted in healthcare data exchange. In 2018, we started a project to extend FHIR to evidence-based medicine knowledge. The EBM on FHIR project is working to create FHIR resources for research findings and guidance. And in 2020, in response to COVID, we greatly expanded the EBM on FHIR project to the COVID Knowledge Accelerator, an open virtual organization. We are now having 10 active working groups with nearly 100 people working on multiple aspects of facilitating the implementation of evidence-related FHIR resources for any efforts to identify, evaluate, and report COVID evidence. Our work to make science computable found more than 30 concepts for which there was no scaled fit-for-purpose coding system. We selected 4 code systems for initial development: statistic type, statistic model, study design, and risk of bias. We developed a protocol for code system development to be able to have wide-ranging input from many perspectives, and there are 13 steps in this protocol. We will go through the first 5 steps and describe the process here, and then later steps will involve getting greater input and universal or near universal agreement regarding these code systems. So the first step is to assemble an expert working group. And we have open invitations. People are still welcome to contribute at any time, as this is an ongoing activity. And at this point, we have 57 participants from 26 countries across 6 continents getting involved in one or more of the 4 code system development efforts. The second step is to identify the tools commonly being used in practice today, because our goal is to create code systems to increase the efficiency of what is already occurring. We are not attempting to create a theoretical code system for everything that can happen in the future. We have time in the future to catch up with that, but we do want to know what are people doing now for which code systems can improve the communication. So you see here 6 different tools suggested or identified for reporting statistic types and statistic models. And there were 5 tools recognized for study design code system reporting, many of which are tools supported by the National Library of Medicine. And for risk of bias, there were actually 12 different tools commonly being used for different approaches to assess the risk of bias of the evidence. After we've identified these 23 tools, the third step is to draft terms, specifically creating lists of non-redundant concepts that can become code system members and meet the needs of all of the different tools. So we've identified 368 such concepts by working across all 4 of these code systems with the expert working groups and the 23 different tools. Here is a quick view of one of the spreadsheets we use to facilitate it. In this case, this is the risk of bias code system, and columns E, F, G, H, and I shown on the screen here show some of the different risk of bias assessment tools, ROB1, ROB2, Robbins I, and Newcastle Ottawa tool, and then Robus in column J. And for each of these tools, the cells map out specific concepts that are used in the tool to express the risk of bias. We have aligned them where possible. And on the left, we have created individual terms to capture that concept across the tools, and then organize those terms in categories and subcategories to facilitate finding the code and also facilitate our understanding to make sure these codes are truly non-redundant concepts. We have applied categories for that latter purpose, and you can see here the top categories occurring across the 4 different code systems, and there is so much activity in the risk of bias area, there's more high-level categories than fit on this image. Step 4 then, before we create the final set of codes for our system and the definitions, we want to see what has already been done. So we want to identify any ontologies that would inform any of these code system developments. 25 ontologies have been identified so far, and 23 have met our eligibility criteria to be free to use with no restrictions on how the data could be used. We are currently working through step 5, mapping the 368 draft terms of our code systems to any of the 23 identified ontologies, and for each ontology term pairing, capturing the preferred term in that ontology, any alternative terms or synonyms, and the definitions provided in that ontology. So here is an example in the OBCS ontology, and mapping this to the statistic model set of terms. And you can see in row 12, the concept name ANOVA, or analysis of variance, is found in the OBCS with the display term of ANOVA, and there are no synonyms, and the definition starts in column H. You will notice in row 20 and row 21 that we have draft terms for Wilcoxon rank sum test and Mann-Whitney U-test, and in this ontology, there is one term, the preferred term is Mann-Whitney U-test, and the synonym is Wilcoxon rank sum test. If we find this consistent across the many ontologies, we may then collapse these 2 terms, but during our draft term creation, it was suggested that there are times when these are not exactly the same, and we will discover that, either prove or disprove that assertion as this project unfolds. So we are early in step 5 in the 13-step protocol. When the mapping across the ontologies is completed, we will move on to step 6, where we select the preferred term, synonyms, and definitions for each member of the code system. Then steps 7 through 9 involve iterative efforts to reach universal agreement across the expert working group for each of these concepts. When complete, if most of the content is derived from a single ontology, then we will work more deeply with that ontology. If not, then we will publish the first version of the code system. Step 12 then involves evaluating the implementation of the code system and making changes as needed. Step 13 then sets up ways to continuously apply steps 1 through 12 for updating and maintenance. So you are welcome to join us. You can join an expert working group for any one of these code system development efforts at the tinyurl.com invite to EWG. And you can join the COVID Knowledge Accelerator at tinyurl.com COKA 2020, or email me at balper@computablepublishing.com if you have any further questions. Thank you.